So I told myself that I would come back to this review after I was done reading the book Cloud Atlas. It is taking me years to get around to reading the book. And well, I finally finished it. So here's the thing. If I like a movie that was based on a book, generally I won't go and read the book. I read the book Fight Club, and I wasn't a fan since the book was bleak and confusing. Unlike Fight Club, the movie, which was far more engaging. But Cloud Atlas, the movie, is not that good. However, Cloud Atlas, the book, is the better of the two mediums, and it is very, very good. It's been a long time since I saw Cloud Atlas. I will not watch it again because I don't have the time, energy, or patience to rent it on anything for any amount of money. Now, one thing I will say about Cloud Atlas, the movie, was that it had a life-changing message that was preached right around the time Sonmi and Haiju were getting it on. And here's the disappointing part about it. As soon as the movie was over, honestly, I completely forgot what the message even was. I don't even know why I forgot about it. Now see, the problem with Cloud Atlas as a movie is that it has too much shit jam-packed into the movie itself that there's no time to learn anything about the characters, no time to learn about what's actually going on, and when they jump around from story to story, it was really hard to stay invested in any one part of the story. And when you did start getting invested in one of the stories or one of the characters, they switched the story to one of the other ones. That being said, this should have been a mini-series. Now, I have only seen 3 episodes of Game of Thrones. I have no interest to invest my time in that series. I don't want to get into that fucking fandom. But I have to say, whichever group of people made the decision to turn Game of Thrones into a series instead of a movie, that was absolutely the right decision. Let's take the failed Aragon movie franchise, for instance. That was one of the worst book-to-movie adaptations I have ever fucking seen. And I loved that book. I loved that series. Now, the book was awesome. The movie was terrible. And honestly, I think that if they made the book into a series, I think it would have bode a lot better for the franchise, and they wouldn't have had as much of a time constraint as they did in that movie. Sorry for that little aside. Back to Cloud Atlas. And I think that this is also absolutely the case for Cloud Atlas as well, in the same way it was for Aragon. I think that they were pressed for time, and they couldn't fit all the stuff from the book into the movie. I mean, granted, the book is not as long as the Game of Thrones book series, but I think that Cloud Atlas would have done much better as a miniseries. I liked the book a lot. The book was filled with details, big and small, about the world within Cloud Atlas, and it showed how awesome a writer David Mitchell is in his work. I mean, as you're reading the book, and in the story of Sonmi 451, it had this specific detail that even if it was there in the movie, it completely went over my head. For instance, Sonmi was living in a futuristic, dystopian, corpocratic Korea, where people weren't allowed to save their money. Animals are genetically modified to have the logos of corporations on their bodies, and there are people who are fighting for clone rights called unions. Or take the story about Robert Frobisher, the bisexual pianist. I loved how much detail to his character David Mitchell gave Robert, because he would talk about different composers with a passion that I could just feel coming off the page as I was reading it. David Mitchell was so in tune with the characters of his own stories that every word that they said felt so genuine. Like when Robert was writing one of his letters to Sixsmith, and he said, "Sixsmith, your tedious letter from my father's solicitor was an ace of diamonds. Bravo." Read it aloud over breakfast, excited, only passing interest. I loved hearing any of the characters talking or saying things that just sounded like they were so in tune with themselves and with the world around them. I want to read more of David Mitchell's books, but for now, I'll just stick to the books I have in my room. Now, right now, you might be saying, "Fuck you, Axel, this movie is so well made." Now, hold your horses, jackass. I do give credit where it is due, and here it is. Cloud Atlas was a very well-made movie with fantastic editing, beautiful cinematography, and the locations where they shot at were gorgeous. It honestly does surprise me that this movie wasn't nominated for an Academy Award, but the Academy is very weird about things. But the movie itself is an unfortunate disappointment that has too much stuff jam-packed into it, and guess what? 2 hours and 50 minutes is not enough time for us to get invested in any of these stories. Cloud Atlas would have done better as a miniseries, and I wish to God the Wachowskis would have realized that sooner. Cloud Atlas gets 2 stars out of 5.